Next question. So this is one of my favorites, or the most interesting I like to hear from a lot of people is, what's the biggest struggle that you've made it through?
Yeah, I had a struggle with that question because I can't just answer it with one thing. There's two things that I've got on that, and it's this fly. That's it. Get out of here. One thing is everybody I feel goes through a moment of depression, like right whenever you're going into your teens, somewhere around then. I think it gets dark because your body does things and you're introduced to hormones, like an overwhelming amount where it's just, I think everybody has and can understand and associate with depression and anxiety, right? So much so that now it seems like just kind of pop politics. Everybody talks about it. Oh, well, I've got, anxiety or whatever else like that. But on top of that, the kernel of truth is everyone goes through it, right?
Yep.
So I think I was like 19 at the time and just riddled with anxiety. I mean, just so bad, where it was, there were times whenever I was thinking I was having like a little heart attack, right? Come to find out later that it was a panic attack, you know what I'm saying? And, it just that feeling of like, I can't do anything. I'm sad. I don't know what's going on. If I'm in any sort of big situation, I'll freeze or, I remember there was a time I went up to St. Louis with Nick and Ashley and I had to lay in the back of the car as he drove because I couldn't handle the idea of me not being in control of the car.
Really?
Yeah. Like I was a wreck at one point. I'm already a hyper little idiot, right? But just take that and make me worried about something. I'm like, oh my God, And I came upon a situation where I was supposed to move and it all fell apart. And I'm so happy that it did because it forced me to cross the threshold of how are you going to handle this, right? And again, it went from me all the way up until that point where I was so worried. I was such a nervous wreck. I couldn't do anything. There were even times where like I would just double over in pain because my body was just like, you're worried about this. And physically now you're going to feel it, So it got me to where I'm like, okay, what's going on? Because I even went to the doctor and they had me like run on a treadmill to try to like replicate what was going on in those moments. Because I'm like, it feels like my chest is going to pop and everything kind of like hurts for a second. And they're like, I don't know. Because I ran and I did all that sort of stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, it's not happening. We don't know. And then finally I was sitting there thinking about it and it kind of like started hitting me in waves where I asked in the hospital, or no, in the doctor's office, I was like, could it be like anxiety? And they're sitting there with like a little there. Yeah, it happens with kids your age. Just like and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, right? That's what I thought at the time. I was just like, thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
Yeah. But looking at it, it gave me that little bit to hold on to be like, it could just be me. It could all be in here, And I sat with that and it really started to force me to let go of the situations that I can't have absolute control over, right? And yeah, that was one of the ones that helped really shape me was, okay, what's in your sphere of influence? Okay, there's nothing you can do about it, and that's okay. Because you're literally worrying yourself to death trying to get to the situation or solution that you want in your head, and it's killing you. Chill out. So I was just like, after that was it. That was the biggest thing that had happened to me at that time to help shape me partially into who I am, where it was just like, man, who cares? You can get so worked up and all this other sort of stuff like that and so wrapped up in, I need this to happen and it's not in the cards, so oops. So that's part one.
Yeah.
Part two, and again, this sounds a bit macabre and like I'm like dramatic, but I've had a lot of death, like so much death, all of it. I've had all of the death happen. So from the top, bear with me because it's going to sound morbid. Grandparents, it's sad.
Yeah.
But when they pass, it's like, okay, you were like 90. Like, what happened? They didn't do enough push-ups. You get older, it's what happens. You know what I'm saying? So I've had grandparents pass. My mom's passed away. My best friend Matt passed away. Cliff that we used to work with passed away. Torrance that we used to work with passed away. A friend of mine, Carlos, had passed away. I know so many people that have passed away, right? And it's not a struggle that I have to deal with. It's just, it seems like for how old I am, like normally, you start to get to like 50s or retirement age, oh yeah, such and such died of a heart attack or whatever else like that. And it's sad. And there are things like tragedies, like Carlos was, hit by a car, right? He was driving to work. Other guy came across, boom. But the thing is he was in his early 30s, where tragedy. That is exactly. A legitimate tragedy kind of thing like that. Or in case of my sister, sadly, it was going to happen. It was still tragic, right? But the whole situation was just like, damn, because there's no winning. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So all of that being said, everybody that I know that has passed away has helped kind of, it's a hurdle to get over, and it's helped curated who I am in the sense of, man, anytime you have that big argument with your lady or you're really mad about something or whatever else like that, I always try to keep in perspective, man, tomorrow's not promised. You sincerely, and I know talk is cheap specifically with this, but I've had a lot of people go, and it's like, I love you, like I'm not worried about saying that or about being weird or about anything like that, because I hope I don't. I have a lot of stuff that I want to do, right? But my biggest fear in this life is, am I going to reach my full potential? Am I going to be who I'm destined to be? And it is very predicated on how many people have passed away before their time. Cliff was 27, built his own house. He used to go to, he would take mission trips to Africa, and he would teach kids in an orphanage how to read, and he would teach them the Bible. He was a very religious sort of dude, right? Mm-hmm. So much so that his wife had malaria because that was the danger of what they did. These were good people, right?
Yeah.
And just one day they're not here anymore. You show up, and like I had Tracy tell me the news. She was like, hey, Cliff's not here. And it was like, bye? Like it's, that situation is changed forever. And that's life. And that's how it is. And I've got to make the most of it, because man, you really don't know what's going to happen, So those are, two of my biggest struggles per se that I've really had to deal with,
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah, I remember hearing about the Torrance thing too, because I was actually pretty close to Torrance too.
Yeah, we all were. There's no way you could know Torrance and not be his friend and not love him.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I know. I remember, because when I first heard about that, I was thinking about all those fun moments, because he was just like the most genuine, funny dude.
Yeah.
I remember being at, I remember we were all at Outback once, and he was talking to us about 6-minute abs. He's like, started doing a 6-minute abs thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really working, and he's just like, do this thing. Well, we're just like, he's our server at Outback. We're like, and then when you hear about it, you're like, what?
Yeah.
How? And he had a kid too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
He had a daughter.
That's what I thought. But yeah, that's it's tough, man. It's crazy because like, it sounds like both of those stories that you shared, what they have in common is what we can control, what we can't, right? Right, which I think is a huge one. And I feel like I've just now stepped into that space. So I haven't had a lot of loss in my life, but I know it's going to happen at some point, right?
Right.
I think I've lost one grandfather. I think that's it.
Right.
As far as that's semi-close, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't know. So like I said, I think, because to your point of the first story when you're talking about anxiety, so one thing about myself is I feel like I've always been very out of touch with my feelings for the most part.
Okay.
Just always have been, I think, for
sure.
Until the last couple of years when I started to realize like I'm crying a lot. Yeah, because like go through a divorce, I'm like, man, life kind of sucks right now. What's going on? I've never felt this before. I'm always happy,
Yeah.
So it's like
to that though, to interject, you've always been spectacular at being you, right? Like at face value, what you get is who you are, and you've always been like that. Like you were talking about from us being a Nightmare Nevermore, just ready to go. You're like, hey, what's up? And there's no ulterior motives. There's no anything. Like, what are we doing? You know. So you've always been that guy that's just ready to roll, right?
Yeah.
And so I can definitely see that when something happens where it's like, oh God, like it's not something that you would readily have to deal with or to be in touch with. But sorry.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I totally agree. So I appreciate that, by the way. Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, like having that happen is when I realized that's when I started paying attention to like, I went to a therapist and they're like, how many emotions do you know? Well, I know happy, sad, mad.
Yeah. Middle.
Does headbanging count?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Is that, like, okay, so there's like way more emotions than that. So what I want you to do is I want you to just, here's an emotion wheel. I want you to like think about when these occur throughout the day. So like literally the last 3 years have been me like trying to understand emotions and like when things come out and feel, which has been super helpful. Because at the end of the day, we're going to react regardless if we are aware of the emotion or not. Right. But to be able to understand, like, oh, I'm feeling depressed right now. I think it's okay for me just to lay down for a bit and take a breather.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Anxiety. Okay, I'm feeling anxiety. You know what? I'm going to go on a walk. Right. And just really being able to have like those, almost like those hacks for like when things are going and not get caught up in like, oh, I'm feeling just like I have to do something. It's like, actually, you don't have to do anything. You just have to understand that you're feeling anxious.
Yeah.
Go work out.
Exactly. Well, that on that note right there, you out of the box, I feel like, again, have been given a set of tools and understanding about life without knowing it, right?
Yeah.
Because you've always been active. You've always been like, you'll run or you'll work out or you'll do this or you'll do that. Without knowing it, you've been able to fight off a lot of, I feel like, sadness that isn't just overwhelming and right at your door that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Because, like, you've got a lot of the tools that you need, for out of the box. You're like, just run or work out, or I'm going to lift or whatever else like that. And like, it's a revelation to a lot of people because a lot of people don't do that, but again, like there's something magical about a workout where you feel like you've lifted the whole world. And then afterwards you're like, what was I worried about again? Oh yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Agreed.
So it's like naturally you've already handled a lot of that on your own. So it would probably take a crippling amount of sadness for you to be like, what the hell?
I hate this. I don't like this. Yeah. No, it's funny that you say that too, because I think that's true. And I almost wonder if sometimes our bodies and stuff know what to do, and sometimes we get in our own way, right? So like, because I think about like, for me not understanding anything about emotions or understanding a process, I realized like, you know what? I processed a lot of emotions through music.
Yeah.
I didn't know it, but like reflecting on it, it's like that was probably a really good outlet for me, right? For things, and I had no idea.
Yep.
Right? Because people ask that, I'm like, how are you feeling good? I don't know. What do I have to feel bad about?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's interesting. But yeah, and I've talked on this podcast enough, but I really think at the root of most issues, I think moving the body is like the important part of it, right? Like going for a workout or something. Like, if you're feeling mentally not good, go work out. Feels good, not good, go work out. Emotionally not good, go work out.
Right.
Because I think we've been wired and programmed just to like when our body experiences emotions, because emotions are the language of the body, right? Like to move it, go do something, right? It's really interesting.
Yeah.
So,
and on that, a weird caveat, right? That's why I've throughout the years liked metal, because even when I didn't play it, I still loved metal, and I have always loved metal, right? And it's because of that. So I wanted to ask you a question. When was the last time, and what was the song that you listened to that gave you goosebumps?
Did it give me goosebumps? That's a tough one,
right?
Because I'm actually trying to think specifically about goosebumps. But when I think about a song that gave me goosebumps, I would look at my Spotify account that's on my phone right there, but that's not going to happen.
Hey, phone. Give me internet history.
Exactly. But so I would say, so I go through this thing, and I don't know if you do, but I've met a few people that do too. So when I find a song that really interests me, I listen to it nonstop.
Oh yeah.
So I literally have a song that I've been listening to for the last 4 days, 4 or 5 days nonstop.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would be goosebumps, but it's funny how things hit me and resonate at different times. Because that song's been on my liked playlist for a while, and it's been like, I don't care about you. And then just all of a sudden, like, it comes on one day, and I'm like, ooh. Oh yeah,
I love Eminem's Rap God.
So I don't know about Goosebumps, because Goosebumps for me are more of like a whoa, like that's like I'm just blown away right now, and I'm trying to think the last time that happened. But as far as resonating, like something that really resonates with me, that's like, ooh, I feel that. I mean, I would say, last song. Man, that's tough, isn't it? It is tough, because what I've noticed now is because my music taste and emotions have shifted a lot. I think since I've gotten into my feels more over the last couple of years, my music taste has shifted too.
Right.
So I still listen to a lot of metal, but at the same time, like I've been listening to a lot of like seductive female music, which is weird for me. It seems like.
Yeah.
but I'm listening to it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But I don't know. That's a tough one.
It's kind of a trick question.
Yeah.
Because they say, and they is like an Morpheus, whomever, that when you listen to music and you get goosebumps and you have that moment with it when you're in it, that's a mark of a composer, which I heard that like probably 20 years ago, right? So take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But the idea is I can ask you that question and you've been through it and you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Because the music, whatever you like or do, will reach in and get something in there.
Agreed.
That you do or don't know is like about you. And that's why metal has always gotten me. Because metal's annoying. Like I'm a princess when it comes to metal. Like you can't just be like, oh yeah, this is metal, and I'm like, sweet, and I listen to it.
Yeah.
I never got why people liked Slayer. I think they're hilarious. Kerry King's solos are so annoying, right? Or Five Finger Death Punch. I can almost hear record execs going like, okay, we're going to put these guys from these bands together and they're going to love it. It sounds plastic. It's not metal. It's plastic. It's way too polished. It sucks. It's what like you say it's metal, but when I listen to it, it doesn't reach in and be like, this is what you're feeling. Like the guttural roar from Randy Blythe from Lamb of God, right? Some of the stuff he sings about and just how he like roars and screams it out. Now, goosebumps, a little bit of goosebumps, right? Because I don't know what it is, but inside that little kid that's so hateful and angry and is processing all of that, you've given a voice to those emotions where you reach in and it's just like, I'm going to tear the world in half. And while it sounds so negative and so dismal and stuff like that, it's nice for the camaraderie. It's nice to know that there's that feeling and it's a safe place to process that emotion. Because no, I'm not going to go out and like hurt anybody or do anything stupid like that. It's like working out. I don't know anybody who's going to be like, that you aren't a little bit motivated by like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't throw on some like Meshuggah and you're like, I'm going to kill everyone here. You're not. But it just gives you that motivation to be like, I'm going to put a crap load of weight on my back and I'm going to stand up a bunch, right? Yeah. And when I feel like I can't, I'm going to call myself names and I'm going to dig deeper into that metal music and I'm going to get it done, right? It's that right there where it's just like, oh, that's so good. And that's why I've loved metal as much as I have, because there's nothing else like it to me that's like, hey kid, you're not alone.
Agreed.
Like you weren't given a fair shake or you were or whatever. It doesn't matter. We're having this moment right here where we're just going to scream it out together. Right. Yep. Now I love music across the board minus country. And I say that only because there's only been one country song that's just, again, I'm sure you've listened to music where it just doesn't trigger an emotional response at all. Yep. And that's country to me.
Yep.
I don't associate with it. I never will. It's not bad music. It's great. And it takes an incredible amount of talent to do it. Right. So I'm not crapping on it. It's just not for me.
Agreed.
So that's just, metal has been one of the things where it's definitely done it. Jazz too. But yeah, there's certain, it's just, if it speaks to me, it does. If it doesn't, man, it really doesn't. You know?
And to your point, I think metal's the most misunderstood genre out there too.
Yep.
Because I think people associate it just with anger, but you don't realize
it sounds like screaming.
Exactly, but the messages behind most of the stuff are actually pretty deep stuff, right? And to your point, what's funny though is I'll go back a little bit, but when I used to listen to music, I didn't listen to lyrics at all.
Same.
When I first listened,
that was the last thing you would hear.
My thing, the emotions it brought up for me was like, that's cool, or that's exciting, like that's got energy. So I was always thinking about it from a musical lens, like how does everything go together? And I love that, and maybe that's the music writer in me or something. I don't know, just like how everything goes together.
Well, yeah. Whenever you play music, that's the ears you have on.
Exactly.
Like, oh man, the 16th note triplets are amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And then it wasn't till a little bit later when I started actually paying attention to some of the lyrics, and I started realizing that most of the songs I was singing and screaming to, like, oh, I realized I've been screaming this for 15 years and I don't actually know the words.
Yeah.
I was making up gibberish while I was screaming. So funny. But yeah, some of the stuff is deep. And I know the stuff that always gets me is like anytime songs, which it seems like this is common message from time to time, like when bands talk about like not being enough or being alone or things like that, like those are always messages that tend to get to me, right?
Right.
So yeah, so it's interesting. But yeah, so now like I listen to stuff a lot more from a lyrics perspective.
Right.
I think, and it could be the same fact that like I've been doing this emotional journey now, understanding that.
Right.
So now digging into like the messages of songs is something else. So now I'm getting into music that I normally wouldn't have gotten into in the past because I'm coming from a different perspective, right? Which is really interesting.
That's the thing with me. It's like you can't just slap metal on it and say it's because do I resonate with that, right? Like what they're singing or screaming about or whatever else like that, like you could tell whenever they pour emotion into it or not. You could feel it, you know what I'm saying? And you could feel it when it's definitely not there, where it's like, okay, well, yeah, you guys are playing music and that's good. So, like it doesn't do anything at all, So yeah, it's a combination of all of it. The music has to itself sound good and impressive and stuff like that. And it's just the extra cherry on top when it's like, man, that's a deep song.
It's deep, yeah.